So first of all, when you eat sugary foods, you are doing yourself a disservice. You're doing your gut bacteria a disservice. They're not getting anything from that. And then on top of it, you are going to be swinging your blood sugar into that roller coaster where you eat the sugary thing, your blood sugar goes up really high, and from there, it has to come down.
Hello and welcome to Sugar Free TV for another episode. And today we are so excited because we're going to really get digging deep into the issue of how sugar is affecting our body. And we are so blessed today to have our brilliant guest, Georgia Lennard. Hi, Georgia.
Hi, everyone.
Hi. Thank you so much for joining us today. And Georgia, you are a specialist in nutritional health, is that right? And specializing in thyroid and gut health. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, so I'm a registered nutritional therapist, and yes, my specialties are thyroid and gut health. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic! So excited to have you here and to really dig deep into what sugar is doing to our bodies. Is that is our passion, and that is what we are kind of here trying to educate people and get those conversations started. So how did you start discovering this? Like, what is your backstory on this, and how did you start discovering the effects of sugar in the body, and like, what is your view and how do you feel about it?
Yeah, I think the biggest game changer was when I really started to study to become a qualified nutritional therapist back in 2013. But I think what really led me to that point is I had actually quite big issues with blood sugar balance. And I wanted to find out how I could fix that. And it was quite severe. I remember in 2011, I was actually a personal trainer back then, and I was training a client and I actually fainted. And that was because my blood sugar had gone really low. And it was that's when I started to piece together that, a sugary breakfast, like, Nutella on bread or a sugary snack would definitely lead to roller coasters in blood sugar and would lead to a massive high earlier in the day or at the time of eating that meal or snack, and then lead to a massive low later on. Which would lead me to feeling faint and really tired and, quite unstabilized moods even, which obviously affects how you then interact with other people and how you react. A poor ability to handle stress when your blood sugar is all over the place. So that was a big driver for me. And I think the thyroid symptoms that I was also suffering, which I hadn't quite realized were thyroid symptoms, really drove me to go and actually study, retrain actually, and do 3 years to become a nutritional therapist in London. And actually, the reason it was such a game changer was then I could then study and understand why, the mechanisms behind that, so the science and biochemistry behind what actually happens to you inside your body when your blood sugar is so imbalanced. And, I started to piece together that actually it's seriously damaging in terms of your body reads low blood sugar, and so very high blood sugar and then very low blood sugar, which is the result, as a stress, as a major stress, which then leads to all kinds of things like oxidative stress and actually damages the cells in your body, leads to faster aging, leads to mood changes, leads to insulin issues, weight gain, especially around the middle, and ultimately things like diabetes and even hormonal imbalances like PCOS. Because obviously that insulin, that hormone that controls your blood sugar, actually communicates and talks to all your other hormones, and, including your sex hormones, your thyroid hormone. So it really has an impact on how you function, and what can happen with all of your other hormones as well. So I think that's really important to note, that your blood sugar is really a big driver in terms of hormonal issues as well. And if you can balance it, it can make a huge difference to your health, really, really quite significant.
Wow, that is, so interesting, isn't it, Luke?
Very much, yeah. I'm interested also in the thyroid side of things, because that's something that, a lot of people don't know much about, and presumably that is something also that's affected.
Yes, definitely. And actually, there's a strong link So between thyroid and diabetes. So 95% of people with hypothyroidism actually have an impaired ability to regulate their blood sugar. So they are then at much higher risk of developing diabetes, but it works both ways. So if you have hypothyroidism, you have a higher risk of developing diabetes. And if you have diabetes, you have a higher risk of developing hypothyroidism. And that's to do with how that insulin works and how it interacts with the thyroid when it is in a state of dysfunction. So yes, it is with people with thyroid disorders. For all people, it's very important. But for people with thyroid disorders, it's very, very crucial that they balance their blood sugar, because, of course, you don't want to have a thyroid disorder and then go on to develop diabetes as well. And you don't want to have diabetes and then go on to also get hypothyroidism. And actually, quite a few of the symptoms can be lessened significantly or even reversed if you can balance your blood sugar. So there's definitely a strong link between thyroid and blood sugar balance and diabetes.
Wow, yeah, and it's really interesting. And then presumably, obviously talking about the gut side of things, what is the, and for anybody listening and any sort of immediate wins, if somebody thinks that they might have stomach problems, do you suggest are there any particular things they should be avoiding in order to try and improve their gut health?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so gut health is a big, big part of the picture. And I think, a lot of people now know about what we call the gut-brain axis, which is the research that shows clearly that our gut and brain are in constant communication with each other. So even when we're sleeping, so literally 24/7 communication. So when you consider that, then you realize that actually what's happening in your gut will be directly affecting your brain health, which is obviously massive. And then what's happening in your brain will directly be affecting your gut health. And so really understanding these two-way feedback and communication systems in the body and how they work is really helpful. And I think, if somebody can really catch that, they can have a lot more motivation to actually want to improve their gut health and want to do those things, because that they can realize this is actually having a direct impact on my brain and therefore my mental health. And then, of course, how your brain feeds back to all the other systems. So things that people can really do would be to look out for how to develop a more diverse diet. So dietary fiber, that diversity of dietary fiber, is a really well-known marker of health. The wider your gut microbiome diversity, the better your health outcomes will be, and the better you can prevent disease risk, basically. And so that's what the research has shown. So how do we get a more diverse microbiome, which means we want as many strains of gut bacteria as possible, and there are trillions of different strains that exist. So how do we do that? The answer is we have to eat a more diverse diet. So that means, when you go shopping or you do your online weekly shop, as I do to save time, you don't always just get the same shopping to the order, if you see what I mean. You don't just go, right, what veggies do I eat? I eat peppers, mushrooms, tomatoes, and beans. And then that's what I get every single day. Because, that's great and that's healthy, but it's not going to be diverse enough. So you want to really challenge yourself and go into the vegetable aisle or type vegetables into the box when you do your online shopping and go, right, there's a turnip, there's beetroot, there's actually all these herbs, there's coriander, there's parsley. And then actually what also comes into that will be your whole grain, and then your fresh herbs, like I said, even your spices as well, and even your dried herbs, and then your fruits as well. And nuts and seeds. So all of those plant foods, if you can aim for 30 different plant foods a week, then that would be a really sort of strong way to actually increase that diversity in your gut. And that's because those little bacteria or gut bugs, as I call them, and explain that to my kids so they can understand, they eat fiber. but they don't all like to eat the exact same types of fiber. They thrive on different types. And that's why we really need a broad range to feed those gut bacteria. And if you're able to do that and you're able to help them to thrive, then they can line your gut, your intestinal lining, and then they can reinforce that barrier so that you are less likely to develop what we would loosely term leaky gut, which is a permeable gut lining where toxins and molecules and larger particles can pass through into your bloodstream that shouldn't be able to get through. And then that can really alert your immune system. And then the more that happens, the more likely we are to develop something like an autoimmune condition where the immune system is just in an overactive state all the time. And it can get confused and attack glands and organs, for example, with autoimmune thyroid dysfunction, where we get attacks on the thyroid gland from an overactive immune system. And that actually accounts for over 95%, between 95 and 98% of hypothyroid cases. They are actually caused by autoimmune attacks on the thyroid gland. So that's quite a big thing to consider. And there are other ways to improve gut health, definitely, like even sleeping more can improve gut health. And there are many ways to look at how you would do that. Exercise of low to moderate intensity that has actually been shown to improve gut health as well. Reducing stress and anxiety, so managing it as much as possible. Because like we said, what's happening in your gut affects your brain, but what's happening in your brain also affects your gut. So if you're constantly feeling quite negative and you're ruminating and you're not able to process things, then that can actually cause a lot of stress, which can cause a die-off of bacteria in your gut. And we actually do see that over the years, we're seeing less and less strains. Some strains are literally just disappearing, which is quite scary because we really rely on our gut bacteria to survive. Just to give you an idea, the average human has 30 trillion human cells and 40 trillion bacteria. So we are more bacteria than we are human, really. So I would definitely recommend there's a book that kind of explains this really well and how important our gut bacteria are. And it's called 10% Human by Alana Collins. And that's a really good one. I would recommend for people to read just to gain more insight into gut microbiome health.
I'm so fascinated. I literally could talk to you about this all day because my background is in healthcare. I was a midwife for nearly 2 decades. And, I became very fascinated in the microbiome, and there were some studies going on. I think there still are some longitudinal studies around baby and microbiome and all of that kind of. So it's amazingly fascinating. So tell us in terms of sugar, because kind of, our bugbearer here is really sugar and what role that plays. So how does sugar affect gut and thyroid health? Like what is going on every time? Like we go and stuff our face with cake and donuts and sugary coffee, like what happens to our body?
Yeah. So first of all, foods that contain sugar are not generally going to be containing much fiber. So when you decide to eat something, you also decide to not eat something else. So if you eat a muffin or something like that, there's not going to be fiber in there. There's not going to be anything to feed your gut bacteria. So you're basically, like I said, if you're not feeding those gut bacteria, they're going to die. They have to have a lot of diverse dietary fiber every single day to be high enough in number to actually protect you, because over 70% of your immune system resides inside your gut. So those, what we call beneficial or friendly bacteria, are there to protect you so that when a pathogen tries to invade, which is all of the time in the human body, there's always going to be something trying to come in, a pathogenic or opportunistic bacteria. Those friendly bacteria can push back at it and make sure it doesn't get in and colonize. So first of all, when you eat sugary foods, you are doing yourself a disservice. You're doing your gut bacteria a disservice. They're not getting anything from that. And then on top of it, you are going to be swinging your blood sugar into that roller coaster where you eat the sugary thing, your blood sugar goes up really high, and from there, it has to come down. And then it comes down quite quickly and quite significantly. And then that impairs your blood sugar balance. It impairs your thyroid. It pushes harder and overburdens on your thyroid function. You're more likely to then develop diabetes, like I was saying. And then that blood sugar imbalance causes a major stress on the body. It causes adrenal dysfunction, which leads to fatigue, almost like your body's been in a state of shock, and then you have to recover, which you then later in the day feel really tired, get those major crashes, which, you know, will affect your productivity, the way you interact with work, colleagues, family. You know, so it is all consuming. You know, if your blood sugar is imbalanced, like I mentioned earlier, it then causes disruptions in your insulin, and your insulin affects all of your other hormones. So remember, I was saying your thyroid and your sex hormones. So you can even end up with infertility just from something like being under a lot of stress, and that stress, including blood sugar imbalance, can literally push your adrenal function so hard that your adrenals can't make enough of the raw materials, or what we call the precursors, to make enough sex hormones, and then you cannot conceive. So it really is a lot more significant and critical than I think people are realizing. They're not always, I don't think people are always realizing that, you know, when I'm making this choice, what is actually happening? What am I actually forfeiting here? What is this doing to my body? And I think it's really big. It's really huge. It affects every part of you and how you are and how you feel on a daily basis. So I would really try to get sugar out of the diet and really stick to whole food sources, you know, like fruit that is in the whole form. So there's a lot of fiber in there to slow that blood sugar release down. And it is a form of natural sugar that your body is more able to use. And if you can then pair that with a protein and a fat source, then you're much more likely to be able to balance that blood sugar. If you're eating well-balanced meals and snacks, and you're not leaving really long gaps between meals.
That's really fascinating. I mean, I think we can all relate to, I call it the carb coma.
Yes.
You're like crashed out after having like the fully loaded high carbohydrate meal, and then high carbohydrate snack, and always, you know, you've had that lunchtime, and then the siesta, you just have to pass out from the carb. And then you wake up feeling awful. Like there is just, I can't see, other than the flavor and the taste that we're all hooked on, I can't really see any upsides to this kind of high processed, refined food addiction that we all have, and so many downsides. Yeah, I can see Luke smiling.
Yeah, no, do you know, one of the funny things was, as you were saying about the thing about shopping and the habits that we have around shopping, and you know, one of the things about buying online, of course, is that the supermarkets say, "Oh, you bought all of these things last time. Do you want to buy them all again?" Yeah. Whereas actually, a really good thing to be saying to the supermarkets would be that, you know, you bought broccoli last week. Have you considered kale or green, you know, something else? So they would make that would be a massive help to the consumer, rather than us just falling into a lazy process of just saying, well, on a Monday we eat this, on a Tuesday we eat that, you know, because we're all busy with our lives and nobody actually suggests an alternative. I mean, that's something that, there we are, there's an idea for the supermarkets to improve our gut health.
Yeah, really. I mean, it doesn't have to be difficult, you know, it's just about, you know, we do just want to save time, don't we? So, and we all push for time. So it's like, how can I do my shopping in the quickest way possible? Bam, bam, bam. Add all previous order to trolley, gone, done, you know. And, you know, actually, when we consider how important our health is, you know, what do you have if you don't have your health is a really important question to ask, you know. Then, okay, so would an extra 5 minutes actually be beneficial? Yes, your health is your most valuable asset. You cannot get around it. You do need to spend a little bit more time. You need to find a way. You need to make that investment, even if it is chopping a few more things up for meals and having a little look at what else is available in the vegetable department. You know, all you have to do is type in vegetables and you're suddenly reminded of all these different ones that you sort of forgot existed. And yes, it would be really helpful if supermarkets could help with little tips like that and little ideas and suggestions, even something like, let's say it's broccoli, even if you choose a different type of broccoli, that's still going to be different to, a standard broccoli and a tender stem broccoli or a purple sprouting broccoli or whatever it might be. The fiber will still be slightly different. So even just changing up, I had chestnut mushrooms last time, this time I'll try button or shiitake or, even that can be helpful as well.
Wow.
That's amazing. That inspires me and also validates me, because I'm a bit of an omnivore, as in I get bored with the same food, so I just always circulating. So I feel validated in that approach.
Definitely. And things like going to a market, I know that's not always accessible for people and they might not have time, but if it was available, if there was a farmer's market, even that can be a helpful way to sort of go, oh, let me try that this week, or, let me pick up a few different things that I wouldn't normally have, and just add them in.
One of the things I was going to just mention about the time, though, is, one of the things that we slightly, we feel is a bit of an education process is that although people might say, well, I don't have the time to look into this or do the shopping or read up on it, but what actually can happen is that you then can find that people if they do become unwell, how much time is lost if they had to go to see their doctor, or they did become unwell, then you're losing an awful lot of time. And I'm thinking this in terms of people's sugar consumption is very much decoupled with trips to the dentist. People sort of saying, giving, say, sugar to children, but then spending, the child's then spending time in the dentist chair having a filling. That's more time lost. And it's actually also the hidden cost. There's a cost, because that's the thing that we always say is there is a hidden cost with things like sugar consumption, because there's the negative sides to that is that is the downside, is additional cost and impacting on your health. And I guess with also sugar, you've got to be aware of feeding the wrong bacteria in the stomach. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so you can get what we call Candida overgrowth or Candida infection. So Candida albicans is the most aggressive strain under the Candida sort of genus. And I see it quite often on my lab results when I send for gut microbiome tests. So the client would do a stool sample and send it to the lab, and then I would analyze those results. And honestly, Candida overgrowth is quite common, which is quite shocking. And in children even, I'm seeing it, young children. So it is not great, because once you get a colonization of Candida, the Candida pushes for survival and it thrives on sugar. So it will drive you to eat sugar, and it's very, very powerful. It's not something that you can resist. It's not like a willpower type of thing. It is like very, very strong. So bacteria and funguses like that, you can see even in sort of the animal kingdom and with humans, it can drive our behavior to be quite strange. It's really, really strong and powerful and causes massive sugar cravings that you can't really resist. So then you end up in that cycle, and you've got to then target and kill off the Candida cells, and you've also got to starve them of sugar. So you've got to follow a specific diet, you've got to kill off the cells, and then you've got to reinforce your gut and your immune system so that should the Candida try to invade again, it won't be successful. So the thing with humans is we all do contain Candida cells, all of us. But if our gut-associated immune system is strong enough and we have enough beneficial bacteria, we can keep the numbers under control, and there's no harmful effect on human health. But if the strains are allowed to overgrow, they then overpower, and they can then really cause damage to human health and really impair our health and cause cravings and many, many symptoms.
Can I ask a very, very quick question, not just picking up on that, is that for our viewers, people that are watching this, if they don't know much about Candida and they're coming to this and they're, well, how do I know if I've got it? Are there any sort of tips that you could give people to try and neutralize it or know or find out, or do they have to come to you to do sort of stool sampling? What's the...
Yeah, it's a really hard one to kind of just know that you have it. I think a lot of people are just completely unaware because it kind of resides in the gut, and there's no outward obvious expression of, why might I be feeling tired? why might I be having sort of strange skin changes or changes on my nails or my toenails? Why might I be having bad breath or, energy crashes or uncomfortable feelings in my stomach, really strong sugar craving? They're not exclusive to Candida. They could be for so many other reasons. So it's very difficult to go, oh, I know I definitely have it. So I would encourage not to take guesses when it comes to your gut health. Because if you do present with a Candida overgrowth, you do actually need to take antifungals, which are specific to targeting and killing off Candida cells. So I wouldn't want to suggest that to somebody who, didn't have, because then you don't know what could happen then of taking quite strong antifungals. So yeah, it is really, I wish I could make it easier than that and just say, but I think, yeah, if you are having any of those symptoms, like, because you can get Candida overgrowth orally as well in the oral microbiome. If you are having things like bad breath, or you've struggled with your gut health for a long time, or you're feeling very tired and you've not been able to resolve that through other methods, are you seeing skin changes and bloating, things like that, then yes, I would consider running running gut microbiome tests, and that does require a stool sample, which is not the most fun thing to do, but the insight to get back is quite big. It's not only Candida. You can also look at all of your gut bacteria, any other underlying infections, if you have enough, if there are any other overgrowth, if you need help digesting your food. So yes, I think it is a good investment in your health. I wish I could make it easier. To just know if you have it would be great.
I was just going to say, actually, with some women, and having come from a midwifery background, I mean, a lot of women can present with thrush. With vaginal thrush can be quite a classic symptom. And it's interesting that you mention all of this around Candida, because a lot of pregnant women, where their immune system is suppressed by the pregnancy, Candida for the first time, pregnancy, because now their immune system and their, and all the actually gut health in pregnancy is really, really interesting. There's so much going on.
Yeah.
So yeah, presenting with classic thrush symptoms, and you go to the GP, they tend to give you, a pessary, so an internal tablet, but that doesn't deal with the systemic problem. So, as in your practice, you use the systemic tablets, and that would be prescribed to people. Is that kind of what you might recommend?
Yes, and actually, thank you for mentioning that, because thrush is, and you can get vaginal thrush, but also oral thrush, and that is, that is definitely. I mean, if anybody is struggling with that, then that is definitely a tip off. I would say that you do often get cases of people who do have a Candida infection, but they're not presenting with thrush. So that's the only sort of thing here. But thank you so much for mentioning that. And yes, with pregnant women, it is so common, because that the immune system goes down and the Candida goes, right, perfect, there's a way in there. And that's why it's called an opportunistic bacteria. So yeah, I think definitely that. So to answer your question, so in my clinic, it's a three-pronged approach, really, where we, first of all, yes, we have to kill off the Candida cells. We have to target them with compounds that they don't like, definitely. But then also we need to starve them of what they thrive on and what makes them reproduce, which is going to be sugar and foods containing yeast as well. And it's quite surprising how many foods contain yeast. It's not just the yeast you add to bread, it's even fruit that's sat on the counter for a bit too long that's gone slightly overripe.
Plums, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and it's not always visible. Even just foods that sit in a container or a bag, it's not visible to the human eye, but it grows yeast on it quite quickly. So definitely, sort of looking at diet and having a set protocol. So like, we're going to do 3 months, and this is what you need to eat, and this is what you need to avoid. And sugar and processed sugar, and even dried fruit and higher sugar fruit like bananas, grapes, mango, pineapple would not be okay, because the Candida can still thrive on that for a fixed period of time, not forever, but until you've managed to kill the Candida off. And then on top of that, whilst you're going through that process, we need to look at which bacteria strains fell too low that allowed that Candida to come in and colonize, and grow those. So take strain-specific probiotics and eat foods specifically to grow those bacteria back, and boost the immune system with a few other compounds. So perhaps some vitamin D, some vitamin C, perhaps some quercetin, some zinc, looking at things like that as well. So that otherwise you're just going to keep getting recurring infections. So putting it all together, and then of course looking at the overall diet, so a meal plan for that individual, for that phase, and then for coming out of that phase, so going back onto a more normal diet. But I would still not encourage processed sugar even after that point. And to be honest, I don't think I've ever had a client who wants to go back to processed sugar after they've been through that process. They always think it's going to be really difficult, and it ends up, they just feel so much better. It's not that difficult, and everything kind of changes. Their whole mindset changes. So yeah.
Because that yeast is not dominating their behavioral pattern as well. Isn't it interesting how
amazing? Yeah.
Wow, that's just so mind-blowing. And just I literally could talk to you all day. This is so interesting. And with regards to kind of the harm that people are, is there any body system that in your work and in your studies that you've done as well that that benefits from sugar? Is there any upside? There's no upside, is there?
No, I suppose people say that when you eat sugar or carbohydrates, which essentially turn to sugar, your brain can function better for a period of time, but that is very short-lived. And then the crash comes, which means you get brain fog.
Yes.
So yeah, no, I wouldn't agree with that. I think that's more teachers that are trying to push people to learn things quickly, whereas actually they should have just probably started studying earlier and not been try to use something like sugar to force the brain to think faster. I think that's not a good idea. That would be the only time I've ever heard anyone try to kind of sell that idea. And again, even if you were to eat, fruit or whatever it might be, that would be fine. But then, of course, you don't want to just be eating loads and loads of fruit without something to slow the sugar release down so that you then have that sustained energy and clarity of thought for longer. So even with natural sugars, you still want to be looking at the components of that and putting it together with a bit of fat and protein as well, to get longer lasting effects.
So, and how long have you kind of running your clinics? How can people access you? And, just tell us a little bit about the work that you do, and so that, just to kind of give our listeners and our viewers, some insight.
Yeah. So I've been running my clinic Beyond Balance since 2016. And I've always, been very interested in nutrition. I did study it previously as well as part of my previous degree, but then the nutritional therapy went way more in depth. So yeah, from 2016, I was really focused on gut and thyroid health. And you can access me on my website. So I've just done a new website actually, which is thyroid specific. And it's dealing with helping people sort of to onboard onto my Thyroid Thrivers course, which is an online course, which is 12 weeks long. And it basically gives people a framework of how to reverse their thyroid symptoms and reset their thyroid function, but in a group setting, which is, very, very motivating. So that's thyroidthrivers.com. And then on socials like Instagram, I'm still on Beyond Balance, which was how I, my previous kind of company, but I'm sort of adding in Thyroid Thrivers as well so that it's more thyroid specific. So Beyond Balance is my Instagram handle. And I do a mixture of online courses and then one-to-one. So I see clients on Zoom, so all online. And then, online courses as well is what I do at the moment. So.
Yeah, that is great, and I think people are not really understanding, are they, what's happening with their health around thyroid, and they just go to the GP, have a blood test, either get put on thyroxine or not. It's not very comprehensive look at the person's lifestyle, but it sounds from what you're saying is that we need to take a much deeper look at what's going on.
Yeah, definitely. So I think the only reason why the course works, the Thyroid Drivers course, is because we actually address all of the body systems. So we're literally looking at everything, and because we're understanding how those systems are speaking to each other, and we're realizing that if we don't do that, then we cannot reset the thyroid function. If we don't also reset the gut function, if we don't also reset the immune function, and look at what our blood sugar is doing and our hormones are doing, because they all interact and we know how to interact. So we can use that information to reset the whole functioning. And really, that does have to be done. It can't just be you take a pill and then suddenly everything is just better. I really wish it was, but thyroid it's very, very complex because it interacts with so many other body systems. I mean, if you really consider it, your thyroid, it runs your metabolism, it runs, how you gain weight, your body temperature control, your mood, your mental health. It's really, it really does override a lot of functions in your body. So I think, you cannot just take a pill and then everything goes away. You might feel marginally better, but then unfortunately, because the root cause, the underlying causes of how did this develop? Did it develop because I actually developed leaky gut at some point? And then that kicked off an autoimmune process in my body, which you might not even be aware of because unfortunately the autoimmune side is not tested for as standard. And you do need to know if you have an autoimmune process going on. It's very important that you do need to know that. So I would say, yes, we need better testing. We need to be able to see the full picture. We need to see at least 5 markers for thyroid health, not just TSH. That doesn't give us much information. And then we need to, yes, we might need levothyroxine, which is absolutely fine, but we cannot only rely on that because that unfortunately will not just fix everything. We will not feel back to ourselves just by that one thing, because it's more complex than just replacing the hormone, that is all that the pill does. It just replaces the hormone that you might be lacking. So a lot more work needs to be done there.
But it's the whole person, the whole lifestyle. I think, under the pressures that particularly we see in the UK and the strain under our health system, is that you just, that kind of quality of care that is needed to make those long-term changes. But there are some amazing, we've interviewed some amazing people, even in the UK, that are doing some great work, just like you, and even an NHS doctor who's also taking the lead on really looking at lifestyle, which is a lot of GPs to train into this area and understanding, even on, talking about lower GI diets and how those can reverse diabetes, things like that, which is, is such a great, it's that this whole area is opening up is very, very exciting. I wanted to actually ask you one more thing about what people can do for themselves, but I wanted to ask you completely something slightly different about probiotics that people might be interested to take. I mean, people can buy things over the counter, probiotics. They can order them online. They can make stuff at home. What is your kind of take on that? Do you use probiotics? Do you, I used to make kefir back in the day, and that helped me tremendously through my pregnancy. But what do you think about probiotics?
Yeah, I think they are great if they're used in the right way and if they're taken at the right dosage for the individual. Even like lactobacillus, for example, which is a major strain of bacteria in the human gut, is, if you don't have enough lactobacillus, you're very likely to present with anxiety. Because lactobacillus, some of the functions of lactobacillus are that it regulates your nervous system, which is quite amazing, isn't it, to think of bacteria regulating your nervous system. But like I said, it is much more powerful than we think in driving our behavior and our mental health. So if you do struggle with anxiety, lactobacillus also reduces inflammation. It reduces autoimmune disease risk. So if there is any autoimmune disease risk in the family, or if you do have an autoimmune disease, it can help to reverse your symptoms. Also it produces lactase, the enzyme lactase, which breaks down lactose. So without enough lactase, you wouldn't be able to properly digest dairy products. So if you were eating dairy, you would definitely want to make sure you had enough of the lactobacillus bacteria so you can then make enough of the enzyme lactase so that you can properly digest that dairy. So yeah, there's, that's just an example of one strain of bacteria. Like I said, there are trillions in the human gut and its function. So it is quite difficult without testing to know like what one person needs, but lactobacillus is a big one if you wanted to try something and then monitor very closely around how you felt when you were taking that. Bifidobacteria is also a massive one, which is also very helpful in terms of just helping your digestive system to run smoothly, boosting your immune function. It's a major sort of fundamental human strain. So those are probably the most obvious ones. So to look for a brand that has, really good numbers of live bacteria, just to note, you usually need to keep them in the fridge because they are inside those capsules. Those things are alive, which is a strange thought. And so they does affect them. And you want to, you could open the capsule into a smoothie, or into a yogurt, which I often do for kids, and for adults. If you don't want to swallow the capsule, as long as it's not hot, it won't damage the bacteria. So yeah, I definitely do use them a lot in my practice. But I do look at test results first so that I know I'm targeting the right thing. Sometimes it's very sort of unusual strains that are low that aren't always that easy to just find in a shop, for example. But I would recommend, trying lactobacillus or bifidobacteria or a mixture of the two if you just wanted to trial something and then see how you then felt. And fermented foods are also helpful, definitely, if they then contain bacteria. You just want to be careful if you are histamine intolerant. I'm seeing a lot of people presenting with histamine intolerance, and then fermented foods would be some of the foods that make that worse. So it's like so complex. Nutrition is so much more complex than people make it out to be, and marketing makes it out to be, actually. So yeah, because the human body, it's not a simple thing. It's very complex. So yeah, that would be my advice. I hope that's helpful. And lots of fiber, lots of diverse types of fiber to feed the bacteria that you do have and make sure they thrive. That's very, very important.
Amazing. So much valuable information there. Luke, you're smiling away, I could see.
Amazing. Absolutely lovely. Yeah, amazing. It's lovely to hear all of this information. And yeah, there's plenty of reading to do then, so we can have a look at your site and then follow you on Instagram and get all of the tips and tricks and bits and pieces. And then if people obviously are worried, they can then contact you and take it further.
Exactly. So have you got any kind of closing bits of nuggets of gold that you wanted to leave our viewers with, Georgia? And then we will be posting information to your site so people can contact you and, and reach out to you individually as well.
Yes, I would say just remember those 30 different plant foods a week. They're really trying to target yourself. I know could be a bit of a pain, but just see if you can jot down even in notes on your phone or on a notepad, okay, I had oats this morning, okay, and then I had chia seeds, and then later I had an apple, and then later I had, some rocket in my salad. It can all add up, and then obviously you can only put that once. So if you had oats on Monday, you can't write oats again on Tuesday. There's 30 different plant foods across the week. And remember that includes veggies, fruit, nuts, seeds, herbs, and spices, and whole grains. So there's a lot you can work with there. So I would really target yourself to try to do that, and just try to gain more insight into how important gut health really is, and to understand, once you can picture and feel and understand how it's affecting every aspect of your life and every body system, that really helps. So definitely reading up, staying on top of the latest research. Have a read of that book, 10% Human by Lana Collin, like I mentioned, because that is really a good one. And it's also an entertaining read. It's not just like loads and loads of science. So yeah, target yourself to do 5-10 minutes reading, maybe just 5 pages or something before you go to sleep in bed, so that you are also, down-regulating your nervous system. You also are reducing your stress response, which we know is also helpful for gut health. You're not looking at a screen right before bed. You've got dim lighting, and you're winding down so you can then go into a deep quality. You can go into your proper sleep cycles. You can get your deep sleep, which is also going to be massively beneficial for, your gut and your thyroid health and your overall health. It's even been shown to help balance your blood sugar is just getting enough sleep. It's very significant with blood sugar balance as well. When you have not had enough sleep, you're going to be more hungry. You're going to eat higher calorie food. You're going to eat more. You're going to look for sugar and that is just, that's how powerful it is. Sleep can really help us to balance our blood sugar, which is a funny thought. But yeah, just go to bed. Go to bed earlier. And if you're tired, eating sugar, just go to bed.
Oh,
no, thank you.
Thank you so much, Georgia. Really appreciate this. Has been such a valuable session today. We hope we can have you back in one form or another to keep the conversation going. And also we hope that people are starting to, this is a bit food for thought, really. That's what we want from these sessions, and that people can perhaps, we can inspire them to keep the conversations going at home and, make those important switches, but always eat less sugar. I mean, there can't be a message clearer than that, really.
100%. And explain it to your kids that from toddler age, my eldest kid, I always used to say to her, oh, you're eating an apple now, or you're eating a broccoli. Your gut bugs are having a party. They're so excited. Look, they're getting all this food. It's coming down now because they're just so happy now. You should be so proud of yourself. Just explaining, giving them a name, your gut bugs. This is what they love. They've got food now. Now they can have a party, and then that will make you feel good. And that's really helpful. From a young age, I think the education needs to start so the child understands and they can visualize. I think that's really helpful because then those people are going to go into adults and they're going to be healthier and they're going to have a better understanding of health. So that would be a little tip you could maybe try if you've got younger kids.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Georgia. It's been a real pleasure having you on Sugar Free. And we look forward to continuing the conversation with you in the future and having you back. Thank you so, so much.
Thank you for having me. It was great to chat to you.
Thank you.
Yeah.